Tonight, I've got Chantea Goetz on the show. Chantea is the Director of Cognitive Performance at a company called Functionised. She's also a peak performance expert. For those of you on the East Coast and want to drop by a cutting-edge, state-of-the-art facility, optimizing all things human performance, she's your gal. Chantea, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Nick, for having me. It's been a long time planning this out, but I'm super happy to be here.
Yeah, we're finally here. What non-negotiable things have you done for your health and performance so far today?
Oh, non-negotiable. I got my workouts in, non-negotiable, even if they have to chunk it up. So that's that, and proper supplementation, hydration right now. It's so hot out, so you have to be on your game in terms of properly hydrating yourself for extreme workouts. So that's been my go-tos. Saw my clients and rocked a posing session, and we're good.
Let's dig into those. What kind of exercise?
So today, I didn't plan on doing another bodybuilding show this summer, but that I'm in the middle of training for because I had to pivot. A pivot is going to be a word that we're going to use a lot tonight. So having realized that I broke my ankle in March, and then continuing to train like it wasn't broken because I didn't realize it was broken. I had to take a break from running. So I still needed a goal. I needed something to train for. So I shifted gears and went back to bodybuilding to let my leg heal a little bit. So I'm right in the middle of this training mode. Competition's 6 weeks out. So it's fast and furious, a lot of cardio, ARX. So I'm using my tonal, I'm using my Carol, I'm using my ARX, my Vibe plates, my AVE, everything. You know, we'll get into more detail about all these fun things, but.
I like that. And what supplements have you taken or do you take?
So right now I take a testosterone booster. I base that on my blood work. So I have the proper elements in my thyroid. So I take my T3, I do my testosterone, I have my progesterone cream. Other than that, those are my go-tos. I don't do multivitamins. I take my amino acids every day while training, my creatine. So I keep it simple, but keep it functional. Like what the body actually needs is what I give it.
Yeah, I'll ask you about those later, but I was recently reading some work by a researcher named Ray Peat, and he's talking about these 3 forgotten hormones. And one of them is progesterone, another is pregnenolone, and another is DHEA. And they're either forgotten or don't get the attention they deserve, especially around anti-stress and like longevity or anti-aging, if you will.
Oh, absolutely. Pregnenolone is fantastic for anti-aging. DHEA, the foundation. So everything that you're trying to do, people don't realize hormones play such an important factor in energy levels. And, the thyroid being, sluggish in a lot of women as you age, weight loss issues. If your thyroid's not right, and we checked mine last year because I hit this plateau and nothing was working. And it turns out my T3 and reverse T3 were completely opposite of each other. Supplement it with the right things, and then your body is a furnace again.
Yeah.
So we're big into testing to make sure that you're only doing what you actually need and you're going to get the best benefits from it. So I tell people I'm not only, the president and CEO, if you will, I'm a client. So, I live by example. If it works for me, I know it's going to work for other people.
I love that. And without having that testing done, I guess in your case, and one of my top modalities is blood panels, because without it, you're flying blind. You don't know if what you're eating is helping or harming, and same with supplementation.
1,000%. We tell people all the time, if you're not testing, you're guessing, and always test for success. Otherwise, it's like throwing darts at a dartboard. It may or may not work.
Yeah. So what's your backstory? How did you get into human performance optimization?
So it started, I've actually always been one of the go-tos for performance. I've kind of never shied away from competitions in athletics, whether it was softball. I mostly focused on swimming and diving. You couldn't keep me out of the water, 5 a.m. practices, 3-a-days. It didn't matter. Had everything all planned out, human body. I would watch surgeries when I was, 9. I can remember my dad had reconstructive knee surgery. I just watched the over and over. I was going to be a reconstructive surgeon. That was my initial go-to plan all through high school, started college pre-med, but kind of had to shift gears a little bit. My high school graduation night is I got into a nasty car accident and actually fractured a vertebrae in my neck. So I spent that whole summer in rehabs, and they didn't know that the neck was broken. Kind of a theme here. Didn't show up on an x-ray, but I was still having a lot of problems my freshman year of undergrad and doing all of the pre-med classes, and did fine. I mean, I still maintained, but I was always tired. I'm like, something's just not right. And so I went for another opinion by one of the orthopedic surgeons in Tampa, and they did the CAT scan and found out this was November. I broke it in May, that it had buckled and it fused together, but kind of pointed in the opposite direction. He said, we can go in and fix it. I said, I am 18. I walk, I talk. You're not cutting into my neck. Thank you very much. So different modalities later, a lot of Graston is actually what got rid of all the scar tissue in my neck. So that Graston. So Graston's a soft tissue instrumentation. So let's see, I actually have a fun little tool here. So these little guys, if your physician is properly trained in this, my husband happens to be, you scrape on your skin. If you have no dysfunction in the fascia, it doesn't hurt. If you find a spot that is real gritty where the scar tissue is, it's going to turn bright red, purple, all sorts of colors, because it's breaking up the fascial patterns that have healed incorrectly so that now the body can operate and glide properly.
And for listeners, she's holding up a little metal tool that's, I guess, like round-ish.
So it can scrape. Basically, you're scraping the skin to break up the scar tissue in any parts of the body. So it can be used everywhere. It's fantastic. You can do it on yourself. If you have a professional, it's obviously much better. But that was a big change and transition for me that freshman year. So going back to your original question of getting into the health and fitness and performance aspect, I wanted to perform better. I knew something wasn't right. I wanted to do what I could to make myself better. Went into, I had to do some hours in a hospital for one of my classes and realized I hated hospitals. I couldn't see myself going to work in a hospital every single day. So I said, all right, let's shift and pivot. So I went into allied health, thinking maybe rehabilitation, physical therapy, DPT, something like that. Did hours in a rehab center, same thing. Didn't like it. It's too confined. It was too much of the same old, same old. So I'm like, what else can I do? Let me put my interests of sports and put my interest in the human body. And I came out with a sports management degree because I love the whole aspect of training, of organization, of just optimizing performance from the ground up. So that was what I did. Loved every second of it. What other classes can you go to and go to Monday Night Football games at Raymond James Stadium? I don't know, but I did. And then became a director for health and fitness facilities in Florida. So I kind of just pivoted right into that. Never thought I would own my own company, my own smart gym, but it just seemed to pave the way for itself. Went back to school after my 3 kids and got my master's in sports psychology because the mindset behind people making changes is where it really happens.
Yes.
Nothing happens until you're ready. And then there's always reasons that we can say not to do something. So I love tapping into those and busting down the walls and just getting you over the self-limiting beliefs, because we all have them and it's normal to have them. It's easier to say we can't do something than to push yourself to do something hard.
Definitely. And I can relate. It's much easier and more appealing to reach for the supplement or the aid, the biohack that'll get you over that hurdle. But if you don't address why you're there in the first place, it'll be a temporary solution and eventually you'll lapse back into what your pre-treated state.
Exactly. You have to get to the root of the dysfunction. And it's not always an easy process. It can be messy, but it's the only way true change happens.
And when did you come across biofeedback?
In my master's program. So my master's thesis, I wanted to do something that combined the physiology as well as the psychology, and did my research on using biofeedback and ACL injury recovery. So I'm still a peer reviewer for rehabilitation psychology. I love reading all the journal articles that come through to me, that are getting published, and it's really fun to see. But there's just more to it, combining what the body and brain are doing and seeing it in real time to get more optimal results. So I fell in love with the field during the master's program, and then I said, I need more. So then I found, my doctorate, and I'm cranking that out and utilizing biofeedback, heart rate variability, not only with athletes, but with big peak performing executives. It translates into so many applicable areas of tapping into what the mind and the body are doing together.
Can you walk us through what biofeedback and heart rate variability are?
Absolutely. So biofeedback is basically information about your body that is being fed back to you via a TV screen, computer screen, real-time information. So when I'm talking about what the body's measuring, the biggest ones are skin conductance, so your sweat response. So a lot of times there's probes and sensors that we place on the fingers. It's very non-invasive. It doesn't hurt. You don't really notice it other than that your fingers are just in a little cylinder. I have little finger probes. And we track your heart rate, and that's different than heart rate variability. So I'll get to that. But we want to know, we said your skin temperature. We can check that. We check your blood volume pulse. So how much blood is flowing through, like you go to the doctor and they put the little plasmograph on your finger and it, turns red to make sure that you're getting enough O2 and that the blood's flowing freely. We can check the same things through biofeedback. What's great about it is when you have a stress response, you see the changes in what's happening to your body. So a lot of us have sweat responses. So you can either get, the cold hands, clammy hands, the really sweaty hands when we're stressed, when we have to do a presentation, or we're nervous about something. Well, this picks everything up. So it gives you that cue. It's feeding the brain information about what the body is doing in response to a certain stimulation. It could be a thought. It could be a cough. It could be, you're sick. Your body is going to respond differently to each stressor. And we have good stress, which is eustress. We all need eustress in our lives. And then we have, our negative stress. And it's finding that proper balance of how the body can handle the different stresses so that it's not overtaxing your system.
But even good stress, the eustress, if it's in too high of dose, can become distress or negative stress.
Correct. There's the Yerke-Dodson's optimal zone of functioning. We want to have just enough pressure, just enough stress to keep us engaged and focused in our activity, but not too much to take us out of that zone of performance.
Now about heart rate variability, what is that and how do you use it?
So heart rate variability is the measure of change between the heartbeats. So it's the variation. It's not your heart rate, say your heart rate's 60. It's not that. It's measuring the beat-to-beat intervals. So what's changing between those heartbeats itself. The higher the variation, the better you handle stress and life itself. It leads to, more optimal functioning within the body, the brain. It lowers your risks for, cardiovascular diseases, obesity, things of that nature. The lower levels of HRV, the more inclined you are to have other dispositions that can lead to, cardiovascular diseases. So you want to optimize the HRV. You want to lower your sympathetic response. So we have our nervous system. We have our sympathetic nervous system, which is our fight or flight. When we all feel it, the blood is boiling and you don't know what to do. That's your sympathetic nervous system in action. It's taking you're running from a tiger. What do? We want to bring balance and let your parasympathetic, which is your rest and digest nervous system, out. And we want that to be the overarching functioning component of the body. We want you to be calm and collected. We don't want to tax your system. We don't want to tax your organs, your brain too much, so that you're now in a compromised health position. So, measuring HRV can be done in many ways. Technology is fascinating right now. It's booming with wearables right now. Just different apps on your phone. So everybody, has one. We all have a specific HRV that correlates to our optimal health. So tapping into that, doing proper measurements with the initial biofeedback profile. So it's the psychophysiological profile, lets us know where's your baseline. And then we ask the questions, what's your lifestyle? How are you feeling? Do they correlate? Can you see what you're doing in your everyday life that is detracting from your overall well-being? Then the second component is, breathing. So we all have a resonant frequency breath rate, a rate at which our body breathes and functions the best. Identifying that and then teaching people how to breathe properly now just gets everything stimulated the right way. It puts your breath rate and your heart rate in sync, which is the foundation of having a true good HRV.
That's something that most of the HRV monitoring, like biofeedback solutions, miss. They don't incorporate the resonant breathing. But before we even get to that, I've noticed that some days after I track my HRV both throughout the night and get the score back via like an Aura ring or a BioStrap or something. And then I also take it first thing upon waking before I even get out of bed. And I've noticed that when I'm under a lot of stress, it goes down. But then when I get to that next level and it's like insane or I've overtaxed my body, then my HRV paradoxically can go way up, like way above what I'm used to. And I'm wondering if that has to do with like overreaching and putting your body into like full repair mode, meaning that I haven't recovered enough and my body's like desperately trying to get there.
It's tapping into all the resources. Absolutely. So if you're not giving yourself enough time to recover, that's why it's so important and it's vital that a lot of Olympic athletes are now using this, world-class teams, because it tracks how well you recover. Maybe you alter your training program for the next day. Maybe you need more of a stretching, a dynamic flexibility as opposed to a long 5-10 mile run. If you're already depleted and now all your numbers are elevated and not a good way. It's putting you at that top of the peak, not in the middle. We don't want to be too low. We don't want to be too high. You want to find that happy medium.
I think that's where folks need to have discernment, and seeing a higher number isn't always better if your body is telling you, hey, stop, slow down, you need more rest. And then if you listen to the device and just see a higher number is better, that can lead you astray.
Yes. Everything is with a grain of salt, especially all the new technologies out there. There's an educational component that needs to go with it that a lot of people are like, oh, this is so fun. Let me just try this. You can try putting a workout program together, but unless you have a background in it, you may or may not put things in the right way. If your car breaks down and you're not a mechanic or you don't know what you're doing and you try, you could kill yourself. You can. So I take about, with everything in a profession, if it's not your area of expertise, go to someone where it is. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to sit here and do my car, but I will certainly write my programs and I will write everyone else's programs. I know my limitations and I work within those, limitations and scope of practice. And that's what you want to look for is solid research and not just, Google reviews.
Yeah. When I check my heart rate variability in the morning and see a low score, but not the lowest possible and not the off the charts high, then when I'm going to plan my workout, I'll back off a little bit. I will maybe not finish that last rep, the last set, and put myself into injury territory. But how else do you see people using this? Because I still don't want to, if I see a low score, just take the day off. It seems like counterproductive.
So it all depends on what you're using to measure and what the measurement is. So there's a lot of acronyms and there's a lot of measurements that come with measuring HRV. You have your SDNN, which is the one that I utilize the most. But not every company and every device uses the same measurement. Your low frequency, high frequency, so it depends what it is that you're using. So tell me, which app or device are you using to measure your HRV in the morning?
In the morning, I'm using Garmin, and it shows the RMSD. There's like 4 or 5 different algorithms, and it shows all of them. Or maybe not all of them, but it shows a lot of them. So I just look through them, and I forget which is the most accurate one. I have it in my notes somewhere, but
the SDNN is the one that I utilize the most.
Some of them are affected by breathing and others are not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You want the SDNN to be a higher number, over 100.
Mm-hmm.
If it drops below 100, you're having physiological issues. There could be an infection, you could be super overtired, things of that nature. But you want to typically see your SDNNs over that 100 threshold mark to feel and perform at your best. But, going to what do you people use it for? And that not widely used enough, and I must say, because it's not fully understood. So people, they're like, oh, okay, I have a good, HRV. Well, I asked them, well, what does that mean? Like, I don't know. It could, sleep. It plays a big factor. It's the restorative properties at night, the neurogenesis through the brain. How much are you spending in, REM and deep sleep? Are you getting enough restorative sleep? Is your body having enough time to recover? Does your heart rate drop down low enough? These factors, are contributing to your overall score. So I don't know what your sleep is like. Perhaps some nights you sleep better than others. Maybe you need a cooler room. Maybe you need, fan or white noise. Little things that people don't tap into that give you, the basis for the whole next day. So you might wake up feeling great, but your HRV might say otherwise. Go with what feels great. If you feel you have the energy, use it to your advantage. If your HRV is low and you're feeling low, then use that to take the day and reprioritize what needs to get done. You can't go just on numbers.
Yeah.
And this is that. Don't get caught up with the numbers.
One thing I didn't piece together fully and understand the magnitude of importance until this year when I started going through some of the journals was just how neurologically taxing workouts are, especially strength, and getting that sleep when it restores the brain. It has like other benefits to athletic performance that most people probably don't think of.
Absolutely. I think sleep is one of the most underrated qualities that can change a whole entire day. We go through, and the average, 6.7, hours per night or 7.3, whatever the person, functions best on. I know there's some days I get 5, and I know that my workouts are going to be really hard the next day if I'm only getting 5 hours of sleep, or if my quality of sleep, wasn't as good. I might have been too hot at night. Kids might have come down. That happens a lot. 3 kids, usually just the little one, she comes and climbs in bed. But, it makes such a difference with the workouts, and it can be dangerous to a level if you're sleep deprived. Because if you're lifting heavy, and that's, the nice part about all my fun toys is you won't get injured the way that you would with using dumbbells. Mm-hmm. If you're just, mind's not right and you let one thing slip, well, now you're under a ton of plates, like you got to train smarter, not harder in that instance.
And with sleep deprivation, it's not just the risk of injury, but even if you manage to escape unscathed, you're also under a higher catabolic load. Your muscles are breaking down more than they would if you had adequate sleep, and you're not going to stimulate muscle protein synthesis as much. So it's like an overall lose-lose.
Of course, absolutely. You need to flush out the toxins. You need to, get rid of the lactic acid. You need, that body needs to come back stronger than the day before. And sleep is where it happens. Sleep is a magical process.
I think most people that have found HRV see the impact of sleep on their scores. But the one component that you mentioned earlier that most of us aren't aware of is the breathing. How breathing, specifically at a rate, the resonant rate, impacts HRV. And I don't think solutions like the Aura Ring or BioStrap or any of these like common popular devices have that ability. How do you go about finding your resonant rate?
Well, my software helps with that. So going for a proper biofeedback profile will allow you to see within the formulation. So the main companies, you have Thought Tech, but the equipment can get expensive. You know, you can spend 10, 20, 30, $40,000 on this equipment to properly measure and create, you know, that identity of your resonant frequency breath rate. But basically it goes through a series of rates of breathing. So you think, you know, 6 seconds per breath cycle, 10 seconds, 12 seconds. You take a look at the screen and what the information the body is feeding back to, you know, the monitors. How does your body respond when you breathe, say, 6 breaths per minute, right? Mm-hmm. What is it with that 8? You know, ideally you want to get to about 6 breaths per minute. You know, that's nice and slow in, nice and slow out. It's an even system, you know, to and from. Some people might breathe a little bit quicker in and a little quicker out. It really depends on the person. But ideally, you want the breath rate and your heart rate to sync up. So you want to see, you know, perfect peaks and valleys, you know, nice little waves across the screen. You don't want the jagged, erratic, you know, habits that we see with the stressed nervous system. So identifying it, you know, takes proper programming. It takes, you know, the proper education to identify what it is. But if you're going on the technology that's out there, most of them, like the M-Wave, you know, things like that, they're all pre-programmed basically to about 6.
Oh. What I've read is that when the inhale is longer than the exhale, it's going to be a more sympathetic driven response. And when you extend the exhale longer than the inhale, it has the opposite. It engages the parasympathetic more. Are you saying that for some people, they get a more coherent response, like HRV, from longer inhales and shorter exhales?
Some, yeah.
Oh. Wow, that's cool. I didn't realize that.
It's fun. I said I don't have 2 people that are the same. You know, most of the time it is that longer exhale. Even with my Carol bike, it will do that because it's trying to bring balance in the sympathetic, parasympathetic systems. It will, you know, guide you to breathing, you know, a little longer on the exhale. But every so now and then I have someone that just happens to do better the opposite way.
Wow. And the other thing that's gotten to me that I've noticed about HRV training is that it's great when you figure it out. You figure out, okay, I think I had a tough workout yesterday and that's what's causing my low score today, but maybe it's the stress from work. Maybe it's the lack of sleep. Maybe it's what I ate. It's hard to pin down exactly what the root cause of the low HRV is. How do you go about finding that with your clients?
So the best way that I have them track, I use the app Welltory. It's Welltory. And then in there, it asks you what's going on in your day. So it programs in, did you get enough sleep? Did you have a lot of coffee? Are you sick? Did you work out? So you can program these different, you know, components of your day-to-day activities to give an overall understanding of what your score is based on. So I ask them to track it that way. And then, you know, I have a workbook. I make people go through the workbook. You know, what are you doing? And tell me, you know, if you have a workout program, I want you to tell me what your workout program is. Did you do it to your fullest? You know, how did you feel before, during, and after? You know, did you feel you recovered well? So it's a lot of psychology behind it, you know, trying to get them to tap into being more mindful about what they're doing in that moment. Because building the awareness can help develop the triggers of habits that they might be in, that they just are so automatic. They're not realizing what they're doing until they're having to go back and think an extra step.
One thing we've talked about previously is another little technique you use to, I guess it would be popular with high performers, to simulate a response throughout their day so you can work through it in your lab. And that's to elicit emotional responses. How does that work?
Oh my God, it's so fun. So it's, I don't like to tease people and I tell them that ahead of time. I engage the brain. Nobody likes to be on the spot doing math. You know, that's going to stress anybody out. Even, you know, the best accountants that can, you know, do the numbers forwards and backwards, inside and out. If you give them a certain task, everyone has a stress response to it. And I tell them ahead of time, I said, okay, you know, during your profile, we're just going to record for a few minutes. And now I'm going to stress you out for a few minutes, and then I want you to recover, and let's see how you do recover on your own. And then we go through some guided breathing at a specified breath rate, and we see how the body shifts and changes. At the end of that initial profile, and it's 20 minutes, those last few minutes where they're breathing, at their rate, and they're so calm. They're like, I could go to sleep. I'm like, well, this is your system at rest. This is what it's supposed to be like. So that aha moment for me with them is everything. When they can realize, well, I didn't know that me thinking this thought made my body act this way. So I tell them it's a necessary evil, if you will, to stress you out. But if we don't know what your body's doing when you're stressed, how do you fix it? You can't. So we have to stress you out in a way. With gymnastics, I used to have my daughter do this. Again, kids are great for being, guinea pigs. Certain routines would bother her. So I'd be like, okay, I'd hook her up to her little sensors. I'm like, walk me through it. Let's see what part of your routine makes you the most stress. And then just visualizing mental imagery, saying how you want it to be. Well, now your stress response, there's none. You're just putting in yourself into the mode of performing. You're getting in that zone of performance, optimization of what it is and that skill. So she, I used to love doing that with her. And she's like, well, I didn't need to, stress out about, doing my back handsprings or, flying off the bar. I'm like, you're right. It's made up. The fears that we have, they're not real.
Uh-huh. And is this after your resonant breath rate?
Yes.
Okay. And does that change over time?
Your rate is your rate.
So it's worth people coming in and getting it measured, figured out, and they can use this technique for the rest of their life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I offer, all of my clients that have gone through my program, I'd say if you ever need a refresher, because once you master breathing at that rate, it's automatic. This is just how your body functions. You don't get nearly as worked up as you used to, driving. Like I had someone that had severe road rage. You don't think about it in terms of, this being helpful to them, but you're talking about performing and driving. And if, you're getting agitated, well, now you're endangering other people. So let's work through this. What is it that's getting you so revved up that you're not thinking properly? And then they don't realize that the stresses that they were feeling, are affecting them in that manner. So it can be applied to so many different modalities of whatever is going on in somebody's life.
And speaking of modalities, what else do you use with your clients when they come in and they want the full performance tune-up?
So I'm in love with my audiovisual entrainment. So my David Delight Pro, fantastic piece of equipment. Dave Seaver, the founder, owner, just brilliant guy. So audiovisual entrainment taps into your brain waves and listening to the sound. So your binaural beats. So now you're basically dissociating yourself from negative feedback loops. You're reprogramming your brain to allow the creative side to come out. You're getting into that zone. You're lowering your ADD responses. You're getting into deeper sleeps. You're boosting your moods. There's so many ways that you can use AVE to enhance what you're doing. And what I like to do with my clients is I'll leave them hooked up to their biofeedback sensors. I'll just put it on an open, program. I use one of the AVE settings. So it might be a mood boost or it might be a meditate setting. And I like to see what their body does while they're on it so that I know, is that a good program for them? Or did it not have as much of effect as I would have liked to have seen? And then once we find the settings that work the best for them, then we just keep incorporating that, within each session. Some people I would see once a week. Some people I see twice a week. Just depends on, how quickly they're looking to make changes and how well they just respond to, the information.
So do you use the HRV biofeedback for to test all of your modalities and the response they have, your clients have with them?
I don't, simply because it's not as portable as I would like it to be. So that is actually a study that's going to be done as part of my dissertation. So I have other equipment that is coming in that is portable that I can actually strap on like a polar strap and measure things as they're going through different exercises on different pieces of equipment, just because I want to see a real-time response. It's hard to, we actually say, so I can't say I've never done it. I did hook my husband up, and we have video, I think, somewhere of him holding his breath underwater. So we wanted to see durations of holding your breath, what it did to his overall HRV. And I've also hooked him up with him getting acupuncture to see the changes in his system. That was amazing, I gotta say. That's just really once they get to those spots, and now that parasympathetic is just boom, and that sympathetic lowers it. And then certain spots, it was a nasty trigger point. The sympathetic like went through the roof, because now it's like that pain center. Now the body's having to fight, but once it relaxes and releases, now the sympathetic is down and the parasympathetic goes back up. That was actually a really fun study that we did. If you have the right equipment and you have the right subjects, you can test a lot out. And they're making more advances within this technology. Hopefully, more studies can come out on the benefits of HRV. I know it is, with diseases, but exercise, I'm really trying to prove you don't have to work out nearly as long as people think that you do to have benefits.
That's been one of the biggest changes to my own exercise routine in 2021. It's been to cut down the total duration.
Yeah, well, you think about it, and it's just a much smarter way to train. You're not taxing your system. HIIT workouts, if done properly, are so effective, for fat burning, muscle building, just cognitive functioning. If I don't get my day started with like a nice, long, slow walk in the morning, I just don't function as well. So I mix in, my long, slow cardios. I have my HIIT training. I have my strength training. Once I can get back to running, I will, start. I started running recently, but I had to take some time off, which isn't easy when you're used to moving all the time. But you do what you have to do, and it's listening to the body. People, I feel, don't truly tap in to what they're doing to themselves, whether it's what they're eating, what they're sitting, they're so sedentary, just their body language, the things they say to themselves, self-talk plays such a role in performance. If you constantly berate yourself or say, I'm never good enough, well, that's exactly what your body's going to live up to. If you fuel it with the right things, you train it the right way, this is your vessel. It's your one and only vessel to take you through life. You've got to be good to it, so it will be good to you.
Yeah. Walking is the foundation of any good fitness program, or at least low intensity effort like that, where you're just doing something very simple, not putting your body into a stress response, but you're getting the brain and body boosting benefits. So actually, I have a walking treadmill in my apartment, and I'll try and get 10,000 steps in before I have my first meal of the day. And I'll mix in some diversity of movement, such as like side shuffles, so it's not all in one plane. I feel great when I do that. And if I don't, the day feels like it goes by faster, but not in a good way.
Yeah, you feel more connected. Things just seem to flow better. It puts you in that headspace. And when I do the walks, I tell people, disconnect, put away your phone. What do you really need to read on Facebook right now? Just be. We're so inundated with technology and stuff in your face. It doesn't give you that chance to decompress.
I just released a podcast, and I admit that a lot of times in my morning walks, I'll pull out my Kindle and read while I'm walking. And I know that I should really disconnect more, but it's a great time to knock two things out. But I'm also definitely not getting the mindfulness benefits of being present and doing the walk and taking in everything around me.
I can't say that I haven't read things or emails, as I'm walking at 6 a.m., but, nobody's perfect. There's no such thing as perfect. That's one thing I always tell people, but we can always strive to be better.
One thing I have to ask about is like what you look for in terms of HRV and eustressors, the good stressors, such as like maybe a short ice bath or an exercise session, do I want to stay in parasympathetic that whole time? Or if I'm really pushing it in a HIIT class, all out, 180 beats per minute, heart rate, do I want to stay in parasympathetic?
No, you need some sympathetic activity. Workouts are going to stimulate your sympathetic activity. We want to push our limits. We want to see what the body is capable of. That's why I love HIIT training, because now you get back to baseline though. You've got to have that recovery period as well. You stay in sympathetic too long and now you're having the opposite effects. Now it's overtaxing the body. But it's all about the right balance. We have both systems because we need both systems. If you're, Carol, I say it enough. So this is my artificial intelligence bike from the UK. We love Carol, but she'll tell you, you're running from a tiger and you want to kick up that sympathetic system. You want to get your heart rate up. You want it to get you across the finish line. So I can't say that you want to stay in parasympathetic, because then life will be boring and, you won't have, experience those amazing wins or that rush of, oh my gosh, I just lifted 400 pounds, you're not going to do that in parasympathetic state. You will not lift 400 pounds. I'll tell you that right now.
Definitely not.
Not going to happen.
So then how do you go about using HRV and biofeedback technology around workouts to increase your performance?
So personally, I know that leg days, I need a lot in my tank when I do lower body. So if I don't have it, I will alter my day. I will push it to the next day or the day after if it's still too low from the training that I've done before. Anyone tries to do a heavy, day on a limited tank, you're not going to get the benefits of the exercise in the beginning. And then you're not going to be able to recover properly. So I know it's becoming more accepted in rehab centers, in college training. I know the Olympics, I say it because we're right around Olympic time, and they're utilizing, HRV training as well. Sometimes you just need a day to stretch. You need an off day. We all need an off day. There's no reason to work out 7 days a week. Your body will break down. You have to have a rest day, and even if you have a long workout, chunk it up. There's some days I have an hour ride to do. I have an hour workout to do. I have, an hour of long, slow cardio to do. You're not going to do it all at once.
Yeah.
You've got to chunk it up. Your body will still get everything done and you're going to get the benefits from it without harming yourself in the process.
Yeah. I love if I have the ability, at least once a week, to do a double session. Once in the early morning, I'll usually do my strength training. I know it's reversed, but I'll do strength training in the morning. And then after that, I'll go into the field and do sprints and some field work. And I love having those short sessions, but spacing them out. And of course, not doing it too late at night so it doesn't interfere with sleep. But I find that when I have those short but intense sessions spread out, that I recover surprisingly fast and I gain muscle and overall just feel good.
Yeah. I do the same thing. It just, HIIT workouts, they work when they're done right. Those quick bursts, the sprints, do your heavy set, I think it's a better way to do it when they're fresh. If you try and do a heavy leg day after you're sprinting, you're not going to have the strength in them,
Yeah.
This is not going to work.
I also typically backload my carbohydrates to the end of the day. I will have like a high protein, high fat breakfast, or I guess brunch, and then a more carb heavy dinner. And if I'm doing a double day, then I flip that because I think it's important to have, if you're training twice in one day, to have the carbs to replenish the muscle glycogen so that you don't burn out.
If I know I have a long cardio session, so we use iPrevail supplements in the lab, but the rehab mix that we have is just that. It's your aminos, it's your long, slow burning, starches, because in a long endurance race, you don't want to break down. You need that extra fuel, in your system. So I'll supplement with that if I know I have a really heavy, training day ahead of me or preparing for the Spartan races. I'll definitely utilize the proper supplementation, that way. But I live a very low carb, for the most part, diet. I eat a lot of meat and vegetables, and the good fats. I my olive oils, avocados, things like that. That
Hmm.
just power food. It is. Don't be afraid of fat, people. It's the big misnomer. Fat doesn't make you fat.
Yes.
Your
I,
brain needs it. Your body needs it. Your muscles need it. Everything needs the good fats.
I grew up terrified of fats and terrified of salt, completely shunned them, and instead I'd wake up early in the morning. First thing, I'd have a huge stack of whole grain pancakes with organic maple syrup, and I thought I was doing my body a favor. And then I quickly realized that was bad when I went to the doctor's one day, and he said, "You're on the brink of diabetes." And I'm like, how's that possible?
Wow.
I'm following the USDA food pyramid.
Yeah. Yeah. It can be eye opening. And I love, like I said, those aha moments of people realizing, well, I'm not supposed to eat, low fat and non fat. And I'm like, no, like, what benefit does this give you? Cholesterol is not the enemy, people. We,
Yes.
we need a certain amount of cholesterol in our bodies to function.
Yes.
And you're going to get it. You're going to get the choline from your meat. You're going to get so many essential vitamins and minerals that you can't take enough supplements to replace.
Hmm. The brain needs lots of cholesterol, and there's some research showing that the longest lived people tend to have very high cholesterol. So it's not the cholesterol that's an enemy, it's what's causing the cholesterol to be transported around the body and used to repair damaged, I think it's arteries,
Mm-hmm.
blood vessels, endothelial tissue.
Yeah. Yeah. If it's not there, it's, my mom, she's like, I can't have this because it's, I'm like, Mom, listen, it's not going to harm you.
Yeah.
Eat a steak. It's okay.
That's the tragedy of it. People are missing out on like so many great foods.
I know. I know. But yeah, and don't be afraid of the fats. The brain needs them. And I love studying and reading, articles on concussions because I find it so fascinating, that the old school just, close yourself, stay in the dark. And your brain actually needs the stimulation.
Yes.
It needs the fuel to heal. It needs the fats. Keto friendly diets after, post concussion are extremely effective in
Yes.
reducing the amount of time it takes to heal and getting you better results after the fact.
Hmm.
ABE is another wonderful tool to use. Neurofeedback, more so than biofeedback, but you can still use HRV training and concussion management. That's I don't want to say, hobby, but a big interest of mine, in concussion management, utilizing this technology because it plays such a crucial role in allowing the brain to heal properly.
We'll talk more about this in a second because I think that concussions are an important topic. And as a ex-football, American football and ex-rugby player, everyone around me had their fair share of concussions, and I only had two in my decade plus long career. But there's a lot of information that needs to be out there about how to recover from them. But first of all, since I came across your website, I was excited to chat about some of the things, like the futuristic technologies and gear that you have in your lab. Can you
Oh,
walk
yeah.
through some of the things you have and why you chose to buy them?
Absolutely. So our Fit Lab is state of the art. It has everything you could possibly want for health, wellness, rejuvenation, anti-aging properties. Our big Mac Daddy is called the ARX. It is the adaptive resistance exercise. This has replaced every strength training component. I have never been to a gym since I bought this thing. Now we have two. It's based on total tension. It's time under tension.
Mm-hmm.
So you are depleting the glucose, the glycogen in your muscles in a very efficient, short time period. Max 2 minutes, and your chest is done. Shoulders, 8 reps of an overhead shoulder press, and you can't lift your hands above your head anymore. It's just having the eccentric and concentric motions with constant tension that it allows the body to just fire. It just zaps, and there's nothing like it. I gained 10 pounds of muscle in a year
Wow.
using this equipment.
I wrote about a training protocol a while back after reading Doug McGuff's book, Body by Science.
I have that in my bookshelf.
Yeah, and he talks all about super slow strength training and increasing the time under tension by super long, painstakingly slow body weight or lightweight exercises, like 10-second reps, that kind of thing. And I found that those are some of the hardest workouts I've done. And like you said, after a minute, 2 minutes of it, absolutely drained. And I can only imagine from reading and hearing about it that ARX is like the next level of that.
It is amazing, and there's just not a lot of them out there, because it takes the right mindset to use it. You know, people grew up with the bro science, and you have to do, 5 sets of 15, over and over every single day. You have to spend 2 hours in the gym to get results. You have to sweat. It's so not true. Science says otherwise. We're living proof of it. My kids train on this. My husband and I train on this. We have other bodybuilders. We have other athletes, that have come in. One of our members, her son, plays for Monmouth lacrosse, and came in and tried it. He was like, holy hell, like this thing is no joke.
Yeah.
And I love that. But it takes the right mindset, because they're like, well, I only was on this, for 4 minutes. What do I do next? I'm like, nothing. If you go to the gym and you try and do, another round of bench press 2 days later, and then you come back next week, your performance isn't going to be where it would have been if you had just left it alone.
Yeah.
So it's getting people to realize that you have to train less to get more. It sounds crazy, I know, but it's absolutely true. The overtraining component that I think so many people go through, and then the body doesn't respond anymore. You're not changing it. You're hitting every plateau going, because you're doing the same things over and over and over again.
Yeah.
You got to stimulate the muscles. You got to stimulate the neurons. You got to fire them in a new way to get a better and a different result.
That's been the hardest thing for me to do, is to say, okay, if I'm doing this progressive overload, I need to every once in a while schedule some downtime, a deload week, not push myself harder than I can. Yes, after a day, I'm extremely sore from the super slow strength workout. But I mean, in 2 days, I could probably go train again in the same muscle group. Should I do it? Probably not. But because of like the repetition for a decade or more of training, hearing that you have to do X number of sets, even though the research doesn't support that now, just from having that ingrained into memory, it's hard to break.
It is. It's so hard to break. I have people that they come in and they've been with us for months, and they're like, I still just don't get it, but I'm just doing it,
Yeah.
I'm like, I know. It is. It's amazing to see. You combine that with, the next piece we brought in was Carol, because, you need a cardio component. And we brought that in, which stands for cardiovascular optimization logistics. It was designed for cardiovascular patients. All the research proves the fact that you can get the benefits of a 45-minute jog in only 2 20-second sprints. So you're only working hard for 40 seconds, and it's equivalent, to 45 minutes of a jog. Unbelievable.
What does that do differently than if I was to go sprint on a field? Of course, it's lower risk because it's biking. What else?
So there's the low injury risk, but it's the way that you fire everything up. Now you're quantifying everything. You may not know what your heart rate truly gets to through that whole sprint that you're doing, because the watches don't track everything accurately. I know I could be like pounding and doing, crazy workouts,
Yeah.
but it's not registering because my arm may not be moving, so it's not as accurate in that capacity. Here, you're not taxing your heart. With the sprints, you might take a little longer to recover. The science, it's 2-minute warm up. You have a 20-second sprint. You've got a 3-minute recovery phase, a 20-second sprint, and a 3-minute cool down. So it's, precise and does exactly what it says it's going to do. We have people with knee problems, and came in with walkers that are now dancing around because they have no more pain. Like their body's firing in a way that it hasn't before. And that's what
Wow.
I truly love about Carol. I do their fat burn programs. They have other ones where it's more Tabata training. So it's
Hmm.
60 sprints of 8 seconds on, 12 seconds off.
60. Wow.
Yeah, I do an hour. So I do back to back to back. And then Sundays I actually do like 2 hours on there. So
Wow.
it, you just fire everything. It just gets them talking. It gets the sweat pouring, the other programs in the Carol, their advertisements. You can do the 8 minute and 40-second one without breaking a sweat and go back to work.
Mm.
It's so efficient. You definitely can. Tonal, she's our other, artificial intelligence trainer. They're all over the place now.
Is that the
Tonal
mirror?
is different than the mirror.
Oh.
So the mirror is basically YouTube on your wall. It doesn't have equipment. It tells you what to do. It interacts with you. Tonal, on the other hand, has it's AI. So as you get stronger, it changes your weights for you automatically. Thousands of programs on there. The coaches are great, but it has all the accessories, all the handles for bench press, for, squats, everything that you could possibly imagine doing, your core, yoga, kickboxing, everything's on it. So I love using Tonal because you just feel a different movement than the ARX. And some people, it just works a little bit better for them because they're more comfortable with it. So you have to incorporate things that work for a wide variety of clients. Our vibration plate, we love that thing. So if you've never been on one, it's like a little mini earthquake. You stand on, a little square plate, and the one we have uses 30 hertz. It's going to relax and contract your muscles 30 times a second. So as you're doing nothing, your body's firing up. It's great for a lymphatic flush. It builds bone density. It helps recover. It helps get you, primed to do a strenuous workout. And, you can do proprioception. So it's great. We have some baseball players. You put them on there, and now you're throwing to them. Stand on one foot and catch this ball, throw it back. There's other equipment that we're looking to bring in the very near future to, kind of work on more hand-eye coordination things.
Yeah.
So it's similar to a Dynavision board, but it's not the Dynavision board. But that's also a really awesome piece of equipment. Then we've got our oxygen bar. So love the oxygen. Helps cognitive functioning, helps with recovery, headaches, you name it. Oxygen is super beneficial for that. Asthma, if you've got a lot of asthma, come in, get some fresh oxygen, just kind of help the cells regenerate and repair and reheal. We use that with our body fat laser. So now you're getting, you're getting the paddles, and now you're burning fat, and now you're getting oxygen, and now you're feeling great, or optimizing your cells, making you all happy and healthy. You can do more effects going into our lights. So our red and blue are near and infrared lights. So you stand with the panels, and now you're getting, stem cell regeneration, collagen production. You're boosting your mood. You're combating seasonal affective disorder, mood disorders, burning body fat. You name it. They're just amazing for recovery. I don't know what I would do without my lights for my recovery component.
Yeah, I have one of those here, and actually, I interviewed the founders of a company called Luminous Red.
That's actually what I have.
Oh, wow. What a coincidence.
I have two full body panels of Luminous Red. I think they're amazing. Awesome. I think that they're the best lights on the market right now.
Yeah, and they're also very reasonably priced compared to the other ones.
The Juve lights are overpriced. I'm sure you've looked into those, but...
One of my most popular blog posts was on the top 5, or I guess now more, but the best Juve alternatives, and I came across them in my own research of looking for what's the best out there, the most powerful, the best features, best bang for your buck. And they emerged as my favorite and the one I ended up purchasing.
Yeah, the luminous lights are fantastic. And then we have our infrared sauna as well. So now you can, it's more just mind, just calm yourself down.
I love the sauna.
Yeah, you just go in, hang out, put on the music if you want, breathe it in, let it out, great stress relaxation. So it's fun. But we do everything so we can quantify your progress. And we started and I almost forgot our Fit 3D scanner. So we put everybody on the Fit 3D scanner. And if you're not familiar with those, it's, better than like the in-body that you're going to stand on, better than the handheld, body calibers. So now you're standing on a piece of equipment that is using 400 lasers that scan you top to bottom, and it rotates a full 360 degrees. So now we're scanning every angle of your body to get all the precise measurements. We're checking your balance, checking your posture, giving you, your basal metabolic rate, how many calories do you burn at rest. We use all of this with our nutrition patients, as well as our competitors, because they want to know if they're needing to lose weight, if they are needing to build size. So we keep, scanning as our...
Lasers can tell you your basal metabolic rate?
It does. The Fit3D scanner
Incredible.
does. Yeah.
That's not DEXA technology, is it?
In a sense, yeah. So it's penetrating through with the lasers.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize you can get so much out of that.
Yeah. So it's fabulous. So we want to quantify everything. We want to show you what's happening. Said if you're not testing, you're guessing, and if you can't see what you're doing, you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Whether it's right or whether it's wrong.
Yeah. Well, that's a beautiful tie-in, and I guess we'll have to have you back on for another episode to discuss the book you co-authored, Biohacking the Brain for Success, and the whole mental performance side of things, because this has been mostly physical related, but you're also a wealth of knowledge on what happens between the ears.
Well, thank you. I know we could talk shop probably forever, but hopefully I answered some of the questions that you wanted covered.
Definitely. Where can those that are interested find you in Functionised, or if they're local on the East Coast, come in and actually work with you hands-on?
Sure. So we are located in Colts Neck, New Jersey, Monmouth County. We're about 45 minutes from New York City, and an hour from South Jersey. So kind of right in like the Jersey Shore area, if you're familiar with all the, misnomers and whatnots. So you can come visit me anytime here. We put a lot of information and content on both our podcasts, which is the Functionized podcast, as well as our website. You can go on functionized.com. Instagram is @Functionized. Facebook's @Functionized. That's where you'll find all of us. So you find me and my team and all the wonderful things that we're putting out. Reach us, DM us. Happy to answer any questions that anybody has. Give you more information, put you on a little tour, of the facility itself, and just go from there. But anytime you want to stop in.
Perfect. I have one more question before we go on to the lightning round.
Mm-hmm.
All right. This is one that I ask all guests, and I get very wide-ranging answers. So whatever comes to mind is fine. Imagine that there's a worldwide burning of books and all knowledge on Earth is gone, but you get to save 3 teachers and their works. They can have works that are podcasts, YouTube videos, lectures, you name it, anything. Who would you choose and why?
Dr. Paul Lair, he's kind of the founder and father of HRV, published a lot of journal articles. I love reading everything about what's going on in that profession. I can't live without my Oscar Wilde books. So that's one of my favorite authors. So I go back to them if I need any kind of mindset checks, with that. And let's see, who else would I want to... I want to write. I want to keep writing my own stuff, so I have a lot of knowledge in my head to get out there.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, on to the lightning round. What's the best or worst advice you've received?
The worst advice I ever received was not to do anything about a situation. I think that there's always a solution to every problem, and that if you just ignore them, problems don't go away, people.
Very true.
So I would say that's probably the worst advice someone ever gave me. The best advice was to follow what you're passionate about. Because then it's never work. If you're passionate about something, there's so much to learn, and you can incorporate it in so many different ways. That's kind of how it's an evolution of my company. It's an evolution of myself. I want to be a better role model for my kids, so I try to live my best life to help them live their best lives. And it's just doing what you can to make yourself better each and every day.
And you can hear the enthusiasm and passion in your voice, and it's contagious.
Well, thank you. Good.
If someone wants to get started with HRV and biofeedback, they might not have a huge budget for it, but they want to try it themselves. Are there any devices that you like? You mentioned the M-Wave, which is like the original HeartMath product.
Mm-hmm. I like the M-Wave. I also like Elite HRV. They have reasonable finger sensors. Like I said, it's not like Thought Technology. That's a lot of, more clinician type, programs. But there's some other ones that are self-made. Live Biofeedback is one that is more consumer user friendly. So that's something that people can train with themselves. I said, and the app Wellatory is I think one of the best apps just for getting an idea of the reading and a breakdown of what that means for you. So it's not just spitting numbers out at you, it's telling you what each of them means and, how to make your day most productive. So those are the ones that I usually go to with my clients is, if they need home training to do, one of those modalities.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
Now we'll go on to, I guess, your recommendations. This is, of course, not medical advice. Neither of us are your primary care physician. You should always check with them before you take any of this advice. But if you were to get a concussion, a traumatic brain injury tomorrow, what would your protocol look like?
So my protocol would be a lot of water. So I'm going to eat a big fat steak. I'm going to have, a lot. I'm going to go on a ketogenic, diet I want to be able to get those ketones. I might take exogenous ketones as well. So Ketonate is one of the ones that I think is the best out there as far as exogenous ketones go. Feed the body, give it what it needs. You don't need to give your brain a ton of sugar. We need glucose in the brain, but it can come from different sources.
And also, when you have a concussion, your brain's glucose metabolism is impaired. So getting at those ketones as an alternative fuel source is a very smart idea.
Thank you. It gets to where it needs to go. It's going to help, with everything else. AVE, absolutely. Hop on your AVE as soon as you possibly can. You want to get the brain to calm down, but you also want to keep it stimulated. I know that sounds counterproductive and counterintuitive, but sitting in a dark room, sleeping all day, every day is not going to help alleviate anything, and it's actually going to make it worse. I did a paper and the differences between, men and women. They experience concussions very differently. Especially, women, if you're in the middle of a cycle, it just changes, and having the proper nutrition, having the proper stimulation, get off the electronics, but engage your brain, do a crossword puzzle, color, use fine tip pencils, just something to that engage, hand-eye coordination. You want to work on equilibrium as well. It depends on the severity of the concussion. If you can get up and walk, get up and walk. Do a little cross crawl action, crawl on the floor, get the brain moving in new directions, keep it going, keep it active. The worst thing to do is nothing. It's old school when there's so much more out there. Yeah. And if you can get on, somebody with, neurofeedback, your chances are just that much better. But at home, stay off your tablet, stay off your phone, go back to being a kid, basically,
How about more like the fringe things? Are there like any peptides or NAD precursors or anything you take to speed it up that next level?
I will not speak to the efficacy of those things as I am not a licensed medical provider. But there may be information on our website on peptides.
Yeah, it's smart. Of course, do your own research, but
Do your own research always. I am a fan of peptides. I'm actually utilizing certain peptides to help heal my broken leg. So peptides can be very, very helpful. But it says do your research. Talk to a competent medical professional before you do anything on your own. Full disclaimer right there. But yeah, there's a lot of things that you can incorporate that are not mainstream.
Let's move on to a couple more of the supplements, more in the legal area, less gray area. What's your take on creatine?
I love it. So microcrystallize or creatine HCl, not so much on the monohydrate because it does have that bulking effect. People get bloated. It's what they think of the bodybuilders, right? Everyone's on the creatine and they're bulky and they're huge. But creatine as a supplement for brain function,
yes,
amazing. It's like taking, nicotine tablets, if you will, just to hyper focus. But the creatine just allows everything to flow a lot better. Your memory improves, your total concentration improves. I think I'm actually drinking creatine in my Fit Aid right now. It's just a great recovery tool, and people should not be afraid of creatine.
How about melatonin?
So melatonin is useful, but you can't use it too much because then your body stops producing it on its own. But if there's certain times when you're just really overstimulated and you need that additional help to calm down, to get to sleep, I think melatonin is fantastic. You don't need more than 1 milligram though. The body doesn't respond differently from 1 milligram and 10 milligrams. So if you don't have to take 10 milligrams of something, don't. Stick to the lower dosage. You're going to get the same benefits from it.
I think the physiological dosage is around like 0.3 milligrams, very low.
Very low.
You and I are both fans of big juicy steaks, but what's your take on the carnivore diet?
I have nothing bad to say necessarily about the carnivore diet. That's basically what I am. The sugars and fruits, what do you really need them for? They don't really serve much of a purpose. Vegetables can be toxic to certain people. Lecithins, especially like tomatoes, the nightshades, it can really have physiological issues with people. It's why we always test with our nutrition patients, because if you can't have it and it's creating more widespread inflammation in the body, what purpose is it serving? You don't need it. But, the carnivore diet, eat your meat, but be mindful of calories at the same time.
Yeah.
Because, and the fats, if you don't digest fats well, eating, 80% ground beef, even if it's grass fed and finished, if you're having too much fat in the system and it can't process it, well, it's not good for you. It's a moderation, it's a balance, it's creating, that ideal nutrition program. Not so much, I don't like to use the word diet, because you want it to be a lifestyle.
Exactly.
But not everything works for everybody. So if some people work great on a carnivore diet, I have no issues with it. But make sure the meats are grass-fed and finished. You stay away from the grains.
What are you into and researching these days?
So right now I am researching more into the re-hit aspect of training. So the reduced exertion, high-intensity interval training. That's what Carol is, because it's just a shorter version of HIIT training. So I'm utilizing that because I really think, the whole recommendations of you need 45 minutes every single day, 3 times a week, blah, 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 blah. I think that there's just smarter ways to do it. Yeah. So I'm looking up a lot of different articles, a lot of studies incorporating, re-HIIT training into programs. I love the rehab side of training because I know how hard it is to come back from injuries. So if there's a smarter way to train, coming back from an injury, I'm all about it. Even just dealing with my own, I barely broke my ankle, and it's, the most annoying thing going, but then you see the football players that are, they're just poking out, they're shattering. You look at Alex Smith. I mean, the things that they've come back from, it's incredible, so that mental stamina that goes with it. It's just, untapped into, understanding what truly separates the elite from the non-elite.
It's largely mental.
It is. It's all mental, but why is one person that much mentally,
Yeah.
stronger than, somebody else? So it's amazing, to just look into different things of that nature. And concussions, I love reading just research, and I know there's facilities out in California working with, ex-NFL athletes and baseball players, getting them, because the CTE, it's no joke, it's a really unfortunate thing that's happening to the guys, and all these repetitive blows to the head, and the kids that start, I said my son will never play football. There's a million other sports you can play. I'll never let him play football. I think even in soccer, the prevalence, especially women, they're getting concussions, with soccer and lacrosse and, the contact sports, cheerleading. Forget it. You drop one person and then, you're out. I would love to do more as an initiative, with concussion management and awareness, with youth athletes, because I don't think the parents truly understand the implications later on in life. They might struggle. I know people that have had to drop out of high school, because of the concussions that have been so bad they can't function anymore.
Yeah, I've seen it all around me as well.
Yeah, exactly. You've been in that, arena with everybody. You understand, like, it can take somebody and make them a completely different person. And, eventually that's down the road. I would love, to make my own protocol on, incorporating, the nutrition aspect of things. Like you said, the peptides, the nootropics, there's so much out there that can help the world of concussions.
That's actually why I'm passionate about it as well, because I went through it, I saw it happening all around me, I experienced it myself, and now when I see people doing the same things, I like to help them and I guess do some preventative work so it doesn't ever come up in the first place. And if it does, here are the things you want to look into and research these protocols, these compounds, so that you can bounce back from it faster and more successfully than if you were to just go out drinking, eating lots of sugar, like the average standard American diet.
Yeah, I've had 4 pretty significant ones myself. So I think that's also why it's, a personal interest of mine. They're not easy to come back from.
Yeah.
I've been hit in the head with baseball. I've, fallen, my dogs knocked me down on concrete, porches, and, car accidents, or, whatever they might be. But it definitely has a negative impact, and a long lasting impact that people are very unaware of.
Yeah. And back on the injury rehab front, have you looked into Katsu training or blood flow restriction training?
I have my bands, yes.
Which one?
I have the Katsu bands. Or BFR, whichever ones you want to use. Mine are black and green, but I use them for training purposes, because I was actually utilizing them to restrict the blood flow with my leg when that was trying to heal, using PEMF. So that's another technology that we didn't even get into. Pulse electromagnetic frequencies have the ability to help heal bones and stimulate the brain in amazing ways. So, we could definitely do a whole brain podcast,
Yeah, we'll have to do that.
Another one. But PEMF is a fantastic technology for so many things.
Okay. What's one thing that your followers do not know about you?
Oh, gosh. I'm a big introvert. I like things quiet. I could talk to anybody, but I am happy not doing anything. So being in the limelight is not my favorite thing to be. I'm not a Tony Robbins, like, jump on stage kind of person. This is just not who I am. But people may not know that, because I'm very social when I'm out and about. But it's, yeah. So quiet social butterfly, if you will.
I'm surprised how often I've actually gotten that answer on the show. You'd think
Really?
people who are podcasting are extroverts, but I feel that way a bit myself as well. Well, how would you like to conclude our journey together tonight?
Well, first, I just want to thank you for having me. These talks are a lot of fun when I get to just broadcast new information to a different audience and help them enrich their lives in any way possible. But I just want to encourage everybody to continue to live a great life, live functionized. We say that to everybody that's here. And what does that mean? It just means optimize yourself. Um, be the best version of yourself possible each and every day. Strive to do something better tomorrow than you did today. There's room for growth in every facet of life. Don't be complacent. Pick one area and start with that. It's always one step in front of the other.
Show up, put in the work, grow 1% every day, and over the course of a year, a decade, a lifetime, it'll compound into something that is hard to believe.
It really is. The cumulative effect of transformations are just, there's nothing like it.
And well, thanks for your time tonight. It's been awesome chatting about the futuristic biohacking performance technologies, and I'm looking forward to having you back on for round 2 for the cognitive, mental performance side of things.
Sounds amazing, Nick. Thank you so much.
I'm Nick Urban with Chantea Goetz, signing out from mindbodypeak.com. Have a great week.